Good morning, beloved ones. Yes, it is a good and a great morning. You can say, instead of good day, great day. Instead of good morning, great morning. Instead of good evening, great evening. Because it is great. And because it is great, it's naturally good. Well, we want to continue, or I want to continue with our series this morning on the power of source and synchronicities. And basically, we're speaking about our ability to connect deeply with the source of all being, the source of all life, by whatever name you want to call it. But the process is to make that deep connection. And that from that connection, that we would recognize and remember internally our oneness with this source. And then in remembering our oneness, to recognize and realize that we are not only a part of and one with, but we are also co-creators along with the divine in co-creating our life and also in generating synchronicities, where we are blessed in many, many ways. And as I was sitting here this morning, I thought, oh, this is a divine synchronicity. As you know, we had a little challenge with our air conditioning unit. And so we went out last week and we brought some fans and everything. And I thought, well, you know, they came and they put a part in, but it's not quite complete and ready. And so I just said, well, it'll be what it'll be. But you see how God is? It's a cool morning. We don't even need the fans because the synchronicity is that God has blessed us with the weather. Now, that's just for us. Don't tell everybody. But, you know, it's those things where God shows up in just the right way that we need. It could be 99 degrees today, but it's not. And so even something as simple as that, to take the time and to acknowledge that it is a blessing of God, to acknowledge that it's a synchronicity that is an answer to a call before we've even put the call out. A wonderful opportunity. We've also been talking about a meditation process and a technique where we sync our consciousness or sync our awareness with the limitless field of possibilities that God represents. That we actually begin to sync our consciousness with divine consciousness, our energy with divine energy, our lives with divine life. And when we begin to sync ourselves with that, as opposed to thinking we are separate and apart from life, separate and apart from divine energy, separate and apart from the good that we're seeking, that we recognize it is us, it is in us, and we are connected to it, then all of a sudden, stuff begins to happen. Blessings, miracles, and synchronicities begin to unfold on a regular basis because we are in tune with the Creator. Now, in order for us to better ourselves as instruments through which the divine flows freely and fully. And I was thinking about that as an affirmation. I am an instrument through which the divine flows freely and fully. Let me hear you from I am an instrument through which the divine flows freely and fully. Together, I am an instrument of the divine that flows freely and fully. Yeah. Do you feel that? I'm an instrument. I'm a vessel. I'm a channel. I'm an expression of the divine, and which the divine then flows through me, as me, in me, fully and freely. Now, we've been looking at how do we allow this truth of our being and our nature to really show up in our lives. And it's thought that we might first begin to heal and reveal those areas that might actually get in the way of this free-flowing energy of the divine. Because, if you're a vessel or you're an instrument, sometimes the instrument gets clogged. Sometimes the vessel gets clogged. In order for water to flow through the pipes or through the rivers or whatever, if the rivers are filled with debris and rocks or whatever, it impedes that full free-flowing energy of the water. And so sometimes if we are a vessel, is that divine energy able to flow through us and to us fully and freely? Or are there some log jams? Are there some things in our consciousness that are preventing that free-flowing energy of God from those divine ideas of coming into us and for the energy to do and to be and to have and to create? Is there anything that is blocking that? And that we would want to take the time to look at those things so that we could heal them and reveal them, or reveal them and heal them, so that we really are an instrument, a free-flowing instrument of the divine. And so we're looking at three major areas. They're called power zones of health, wealth, and love, or better put, maybe relationships. Health, wealth, and relationships. Because if you look at the quality of our lives, if you don't really have health, you can have all the money you want in the world, but if you can't do anything, you can't get out the bed, you can't do anything with it, what good is having all that money other than to maintain yourself in this little position here? So having good health is a prize thing. It is a divine thing to have. And of course, we know about abundance and wealth. And wealth is not just money, but it's your power to be successful, to be prosperous, to be fulfilled. And we want to have that sense as well. And then, of course, our relationships, because all of that means nothing too if you're not able to relate or in a healthy relationship, or you're not relating to others and to life, because no man is an island. We all need someone to feel connected to. So last week we talked about health, and this week I want to take a look at relationships. I want to focus on relationships because let's face it, the one thing that can hang the best of us up is our relationships, right? And I'm not talking just about our romantic relationships, although they can challenge most people. But I'm talking about relationships in general. It just so happens that usually when you're in a soul relationship or a connected relationship or an intimate relationship, they have a tendency to show us up a little bit more, right? That they have an ability to work on us in a deeper fashion. But it's not just that. It's just how are we relating to others? Because if you think about it, we are always in relationship. We are always in relationship to something or to someone. Maybe it's a partner. It could be your partner, your spouse, your boss, your colleague, your friend, your neighbor. It could be just a stranger, person in the car next to you, whatever. But we are always in relationship to something and someone. And that relationship could be pleasant or maybe not so pleasant, right? But this is what I know to be true. Or as Oprah would say, this is what I know for sure. This is what I know. That whatever the relationship or the quality of that relationship, whether you deem it good or bad or indifferent, or whatever the relationship and the quality, it is really meant to do one thing. There are several things, but one thing that I think is significant, and that is to teach you something about yourself. It's been said that relationships serve to mirror for us ourselves. They mirror for us ourselves, right? And you thought that they might be about the other person. What they're doing for you, to you, all of that. But they are meant to actually mirror something for you about you and yourself. Because it's never just about the other person. It is always, however, about your actions, your reactions, your perceptions, your beliefs, your programming, your conditioning, your values, your consciousness, right? It's about you. So that doesn't mean because the relationship or the quality of a relationship is to show you, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to want to do some positive and loving things for your beloved one. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be considerate and kind and generous and thoughtful. You still will be able to do those things and to be those things, but it will still be a reflection of you and your consciousness and all of those qualities that I mentioned, your beliefs and programming and everything. Whatever you do is a reflection of you, even when you think you're doing it for a high purpose and a good reason, right? But here's the kicker. Unless we are really spiritually awakened, for the most part, even our ability to serve others, even in the highest manner possible, it sometimes will still be about how we are serving our own sense of self. Even when I do something that's altruistic, it can be a reflection of how I think I am serving an aspect of myself, because we're getting something out of it. Unless, of course, when we become awakened or spiritually in tuned and spiritually enlightened, then our doing and our being and our actions and our relationships with others begins to shift a little bit. It's not so much about us, but then we begin to engage with others on a different level. We actually begin to think of them first. You know, we actually think of them first. We're more interested than in making, when we are spiritually awakened, we're more interested in making a divine connection in the relationship. Because this is the truth of the matter. Our souls long to be connected. It is natural for us to want to connect with the other. Whether that other is God or a person or sometimes even ourselves. We long, the soul's longing is to be connected to what is good, connected to what's true, to connect with what is beautiful. Nobody gets up and says, I think I want to connect to the ugliness of life. We all seek and want, right? Whatever is good. We want to have that. We want to be in relationship to that which is good and true and beautiful. It's the soul's natural state of wanting to experience that. We want to exist in a beautiful state of consciousness. We want to experience inner harmony and peace. And we want to have a sense of well-being. It is natural. That is our basic nature and state of being. To be harmonious, connected, happy, fulfilled, and content. And when we are at odds with others, it throws our whole being out of whack. When you find yourself in conflict, it throws your sense of well-being, what? Out of whack. And this doesn't feel right. What can I do? The soul's like, we are not on base. Something's not right. And so we then begin to figure out, how can I bring harmony? What can I do to bring myself back into perfect alignment? And we're going to talk about some spiritual approaches in a minute, but I really want to talk about first what's going on psychologically in our relationships that maybe cause us to clog up our own consciousness so we're not flowing freely. And I love what the authors, Krishna and Preacher, wrote in a book. There's a book that they wrote called Freedom in Relationships. And I'll say it beforehand. I picked this book up while I was in India. I don't know where you can get it here. Because, somebody's going to come up. Where can you get the book? I don't really know. I got it in India. I'll look see if I can get some more or whatever. But it's a cute little book, a wonderful book on freedom in relationships. And it's written by husband and wife, Krishna and Preeta. And this is what they say. Relationships hold the potential to give us what we want most, an experience of love. And I love that they said what? An experience of love. Not just love. We want an experience of love. And they can also, talking about relationships, they can also cause us immense sorrow. We can become easily hurt in relationships and can often feel alone, insecure, and disconnected, even though we may live surrounded by external securities. Meaning everything can be working out here. Good job, friends, or whatever. But if that one relationship that means something to you is out of whack, everything's out of whack. Sometimes you can't eat, you can't sleep, right? When it's not right, the emotion takes over. Now, what I liked about this concept, and I think it's very powerful that what they said, is this notion that oftentimes we get hurt when we're relating to others. You would be surprised how, sometimes I'm amazed at sometimes, people will say, get hurt at what I might do or say or not do or not say, because everybody wants me to, feel like I am their best friend and I am, but sometimes I miss stuff. You know what I mean? And I haven't seen them, they stopped coming because so-and-so looked at them a little crazy, or somebody did something or whatever, But this whole notion of getting hurt in relationships, and usually when that happens, we may then begin to shut down, right? Or we may become defensive, depending upon the nature of the hurt. We might be become distant from them, argumentative, insecure, ashamed, angry, wounded, and unable to connect at a deeper level. The moment we let that hurt come in, it severs that connection that we are feeling. In other words, the relationship can suffer, and if we allow it to continue, the hurt to continue, or if we allow the disconnect or the anger or the arguments or the defensiveness or the distance or the silence or whatever it is, however we choose to show it up, if we allow it to continue, then that relationship ends up becoming a source of sorrow, right? Sometimes we profess that unconditional love. When I marry people, I'm going to love you forever. But what happens to the forever? It then becomes that love all of a sudden gets transposed, and it's no longer love, but it might even be hate. Or it might feel like it's just sorrow or alienation or distance, and it may even lead to a sense of separation if we are not able to heal and to work on a deeper level with that relationship. And I'm not talking just romantic relationships. There could be any relationships, friendships. There are people who are lifelong friends, and all of a sudden one thing happens and they no longer speak to each other. They're no longer friends. Happens in families. We got family members who just one thing happens and that's it. You're cut off. You can't get rid of them, but you don't relate to them. Right? You got family members who don't relate to each other, brothers and sisters who don't talk to each other 50, 40 years. I mean, that's not any of us, but that happens. Or people or countries or whatever. We just, all of a sudden, it breaks down. All kinds of relationships. And so what happens is once we begin to fail to be able to make a deeper connection, then we move down a path that causes us to feel separate. And see, I say feel because the truth of the matter is we can never be separate from one another. We can't be separate from God. We can't be separate from each other. We are one with each other, whether we like it or not. Right? But when we don't recognize that sense of oneness, we then begin to act as if we are separate. And we move away, and we aren't able to connect. And what did I just say? The soul longs to be in connection. It is our nature. And when something occurs that is against our inner nature, our instinctive way of being, it upsets the whole apple cart. And so we have sorrow and alienation and separation. And what happens is that We might even lose our sense of self or our sense of self-worth or our self-esteem when we cannot connect with those deeper issues amongst ourselves and with one another. Remember, I said when you are in relationship with another, it reveals your sense of self. When you are in relationship with another, it shows you yourself. Okay? And let's face it, we are all a little bit egocentric. We are all self-centered for the most part. And I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm just describing the psychological tendency to either consciously or unconsciously focus on our own needs and what fulfills and satisfies us, right? It's just, other than, I'm not talking about like being a parent where there's also an instinctive need to make sure that that offspring is fed, and that's a whole nother thing. But I'm talking about when we're in adult, mature relationship with others. We have a tendency to focus on our needs. We're in conversation, they're speaking, but we're thinking about what? What am I going to say? Right? Come on, right? What do I need to do? I hear you, but okay, now here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to come back with that. We can't hear them because we are self-centered. It's just a psychological thing. This sense of self takes over. So how do we work with this sense of self while being in a relationship to the other? Because when you begin to connect on a deeper level, there's a few things that will help you. One is to be connected to the source of all being. Because when we can connect with the source, the divine aspect of ourselves, as opposed to our self-centeredness and our egoic nature, but when we are connected with this source of who we are, this divine aspect of who we are, then we begin to tap into a different vibration, a natural vibration and energy that desires a deeper connection. You want to feel connected to the other. And the only thing that really helps us to do that is to be connected to the Creator, the source. And when that happens, you begin to move naturally from the me to the we, from I consciousness to one consciousness. Now, this is, you begin to see the other as a part of this matrix, but this is a high-level expression. It's a high-level expression because you are moving in a different sphere where the me is you and the you is me. And so we begin to see things from a different perspective. You're able to even ask yourself, is it more important that I maintain and nurture my hurt or even justify my hurt than it is for me to be in relationship? In other words, is the hurt more important than the relationship? And you only ask those questions when you're in a certain consciousness. When you can get out of your hurt and you can say, I am hurt, but you know what? This relationship is more important to me than my hurt. That's a very powerful place to be. But if maintaining the hurt, proving the hurt, justifying your hurt, all that, if holding on to the hurt is more important, then you will remain in that state of consciousness and conflict. Because then it becomes about proving yourself right or them wrong or whatever, and then we have to work through, you have to come to me for couples counseling. We got to work it out. You know? Or not even couples counseling, any kind of counseling. You know, my boss is, we got to, you're in there struggling with it. But when the relationship becomes more important to the hurt, then you can move towards healing it. Then you can move towards healing your hurt because you recognize the ultimate goal is to what? Be in relationship. That is important. And so you do indeed recognize first that you are feeling hurt. I'm not saying you don't recognize that you're not feeling hurt, because we're human. We're going to feel hurt. But you got to recognize, you know what? I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling hurt. And then after you recognize, well, that's what's going on, then what happens is you begin to tell yourself the truth about why it is you're feeling hurt. See, what happens is we usually focus on the action of the other. the behavior of the other. And we don't delve into, well, what am I feeling? I'm not saying we're going to excuse that. We will get to that point. But you first, instead of saying, well, Johnny, Mary, Susan, whatever, did so-and-so to me, and blah, blah, blah. We're focusing on the activity of the behavior as opposed to, but why am I feeling hurt about that? What is it about that behavior that is disturbing me? Now, again, let me qualify. I'm not talking about any kind of physical abuse or whatever. You don't have to sit there and say, now, why am I hurting over this, part? Not talking about that. Get out of the way. Take the steps you need to take. Okay, we're using wisdom here. But other areas that we feel, what is it that is disturbing me about what they said, what they did? What is it that is what is it bringing up in me? What are my triggers? What's happening inside of myself? And once you begin to tell yourself the truth about why you are feeling hurt and what it's saying about you, it's from that place, then you can begin to go inside, check out what's going on, and begin to heal the hurt in you. And once you can begin to heal from the inside what is yours to heal, you are then better able to relate to the other. And you are better able to address your feelings and understandings, but not from a position of blame, shame, judgment, or attack. See, when you are addressing your hurts from those positions, you're not awakened in that process. When you find yourself blaming, shaming, judging, well, you did, blah, 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 all unconscious, you're not coming from a higher place. When you go within and you look at what needs to be healed in you, from that place of healing and wholeness, from that place you can touch honesty, inner integrity. And yes, you can come then from a place of love. When you can see what's going on in you, you're able to come from love. Whenever I perform a marriage, these are the vows that I ask the couple to say to one another. And it's this: do you pledge to share your life openly with him or her? I want to hear a pledge of openness. Open in my communication, open in my freedom of love, but do you pledge to share your life openly with him or her, to speak the truth to them in love? So it doesn't mean that you don't get to share your feelings, your thoughts, what's going on, but you must speak to the other in what? In love. And it takes a little bit to be able to come from love. If you are hurt, if you are focused on, then you can't speak to them in love. You're going to speak to them from your what? Your pain, your resentment, your hurt. Heal that, see that, and then you speak in love. And then I ask, do you promise to honor and tenderly care for him or her, and to cherish and encourage her own fulfillment, his own fulfillment as an individual through all the days of your life? If so, answer, I do. Now people say, what? You want me to encourage and cherish their lives as an individual through all the days of their life? Yes. We're talking sacred, divine love. It is not asking, yes, I want you to love me, but it's no, are you willing to cherish that they are an individual, this is a soul, and to cherish that, and to relate to that, and to encourage their own growth, to encourage their own fulfillment? Do you want them to be fulfilled? See, most of the time, we're worried about who being fulfilled? Us. But what would happen if each party commits to the fulfillment of the sacred other? That's a whole different approach. And a relationship is about your finding your inner strength to be able to actually love another. You discover a lot of who you are. What's the depth of your capacity to love, right? To love beyond being right. Do you have the capacity to love beyond being right? Come on, be honest. Some of us, I want to be right. Because we get hung up on that. Do you have the capacity to love beyond your judgments, to love beyond your insecurities, to love beyond winning the battle, right? To love beyond your hurts? Because if you can find that capacity within you, the strength in you, Martin Luther King had a book called The Strength to Love. It takes strength, but it's an inner strength. See, but if you have that capacity to land at a place of love, you come into a place of peace and harmony and acceptance of not only who you are and what's going on in you, but then you're basically able to actually become an instrument through which this transformative energy of love is able to flow. Because you begin to clear out any blockages, any things that would stand in your way, right? And so we work on allowing ourselves to be this vessel of love, transformative love, and you can do it in two ways. One thing is that's going to open you up deeply is to connect with the divine source of love. 1 John says, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God. And he who loves is born of God." So that's the first thing. Make that connection to God as the source of love, right? And let that capacity begin to fill you. You can actually we were practicing soul syncing yesterday. You can actually begin to sync up to that connection, to the vibration of love. Not just love for, but let love into your consciousness, into your being. Let it vibrate so that it does its work. See, love knows how to do its work. So what we need to do is connect with that transformative energy and force, let it into the heart, let it into our being, and then let love lead the way. Let love guide us. Let God do the work. Let love do the work. Because if you think you have to be the one sometimes, you might not get there. But if you can connect on a deeper level to God as love, the source of love, or all love, and begin to vibrate, then things will begin to change. Start seeing yourself as a repository of love. I'm a vessel of love. I hold that energy. See, I'm the sacred instrument, the channel of love. I'm the vibrations of love. And when you begin to hold that and work with that, then you begin to move to a different level in vibration. So that's part of your work. Just to be in love. Not in love, but in love. And that takes practice. And the practice is let God be love in you. That's all you got to do. Connect, let God be love. And that will begin to shift you. And then the other thing that you can practice in healing your relationships is to actually begin to do this meditation where you're simply blessing and offering well wishes to the other. Visualize them being happy and fulfilled. Visualize them opening their hearts and receiving the divine essence of love. And as you do this with the person, and I recommend doing this with the people you love the least. Doing it with the people you feel are the most unlovable. Do it with the people that seem to be challenging you the most, that get on your nerves, right? The ones you would rather not have in your space. Do it for them. Because your doing it for them will shift and change you. It's a very powerful exercise. And let me pray for the well-being of another. This is why Jesus said, love your enemies. It's a powerful thing. So don't think of them as your enemy. Think of, I'm going to love the other, the sacred other. I don't have to love what they do, but I must be willing to send forth high vibrations for even my quote-unquote enemies. Because the enemy really is within you, right? So who is it? Send them well wishes. Visualizing. See, to be able to bless someone is to confer goodness upon. You have the power to confer goodness upon someone, to direct that energy of the divine towards them so that love flows to them. You want to change somebody? Change yourself. But if you can love them even as they are themselves, guess who gets transformed? You do. And as a bonus, the other person may also feel those vibrations of light and love, because love does the work and all of a sudden begin to shift and to move naturally on its own. I told this story once before when I had a colleague when I was teaching at Unity Village, and it seemed like we were always in competition. She was a year ahead of me and very, very bright, and had won all these different awards. And when I came up, I won all the awards too. And we ended up being on the faculty together. And it felt like a need on their part to somehow let me know that they were bigger, better, brighter, whatever than I. And so we constantly hit heads all the time. And I was like, oh my God, I can't stand this. I can't deal with this. You know, I'm from Brooklyn. I wanted to hit another way. Come on, let's. You know, I wanted to back her off of me. Not physically, but I can back you off of me when I need to, right? But I didn't want to go there. I'm teaching at a seminary, so I was trying, okay, let me see if I can. And I said, one day I was in meditation, I said, this soul is in need of something. What is it that they are needing from me? Because they would go out of their way to find me and to, I'm like, what? And in my meditation, Spirit said, yes, they need your love. And I was like, my love? I don't want to give them my love or whatever. Spirit told me get up every morning about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when the soul is receptive. That's a very healing time. 4 or 5 in the morning, the soul is open and at ease. And Spirit said, I want you every day, I want you to bless that soul, and I want you to offer them love. And I was like, But I was obedient. I never told them what I was doing. I just, every day, for weeks and weeks, I just offered them love. I just blessed them. I just began to see them as love, whole and well. All of a sudden, and it was just an easy transition because I didn't do anything in the outer, but I noticed that whenever I would have to, if I had to go to their office or whatever, you know, they would try to trigger me and whatever, and I saw myself just sort of being able to just be present, not respond in that way that I normally would, not have to back them off. And so I didn't play the game, but that was God that enabled me to do that, okay? And after a while, they became less enthralled with trying to trigger me, and they calmed down. So whenever I interacted or whatever, we could actually get to whatever it is we were supposed to be about. And all of a sudden, over time, the vibration shifted between the two of us. And I'll never forget this. One day, I came in, I had to go to her office for something, and she said, you want to go to lunch? And I said, sure. And we went to lunch. And you know, we were able to just simply talk. It was a natural. It wasn't anything consciously that we were setting out to do. It unfolded naturally. To the point that when I left the village to come here, she was the one who threw my party for me. You understand? And if I had left it up to my devices, that would have never happened. But I allowed Spirit as an energy of love to do its perfect work. And all I had to do was send blessings, just bless her. I don't know what she needs and going through, but bless her, bless her, bless her, bless her, Lord. Heal her, bless her, love, love. That vibration did its work on me, and it did its work on her. So we have a power within us. We are instruments that are so great and so fine. We can change this world, and we can do it one person at a time, one relationship at a time. And it'll show you where you need. When you find that difficult person, and they are out there, and sometimes they are us. Oh, don't think that you're not the one sometimes. But when you see that, and when you can recognize that, try and say, you know what? I'm going to be an instrument through which the divine shall flow freely and fully to do its work. So we connect to the divine, and we offer blessings. So I'm going to encourage you. We're going to go a little further because I wanted to read some of the little ditties from this book. I find them very powerful, and maybe we'll do that next week on really finding freedom in relationships. But because it's, I wanted to share some, but I think it's a little beyond time, but we'll do that. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask you for this week. Every day I want you to practice. I want you to take an individual who comes to mind, and you're going to spend some time in meditation just blessing them, sending love, just loving them. Not what they do, not how they're showing up, not what you like about them, not what you don't like about them. It has nothing to do with them, but everything to do with you as an instrument of love. So will you be willing to do that? One person every day. Take some time and bless that soul. And it doesn't matter because it's not about changing them. So don't go looking for the results. I'm praying for you and I'm blessing you. That's that egocentric part that wants to get something out of it, right? It's not about that. Just do the work and watch what God does. What's love got to do with it? Everything. Namaste and blessings. Namaste and blessings. Blessings.